Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we do have full-on buff details for Thor Jane Foster now. Thor Jane Foster is the only champion buff in the month of July, but you know, at the very least it's not just a value update and she actually does get some new abilities. I do think they could potentially come together quite interesting. Now, I don't think this buff will immediately blow away a lot of people, but once you actually get to play with Thor Jane Foster, I think when you do get into a specific matchup, she could be quite crazy, to be honest. And with her ability to stack on shocks, if she can stack on shocks against like Cosmic Champions, Balls, Nullifangs, and buffs, she could go into some crazy rampages. At the same time, I do not think that this will immediately make her like a mainstay hero, because I do think that for her to shine, you will need like a specific type of opponent. All right, let's move on, and we're just gonna break it down. It does seem like they have increased her prestige somewhat, which you know is not the biggest of deal. According to Kabam's champion attributes, ease of use, which I don't think is particularly important, is the best aspect of her. Other than that, you know, she only has 2.5 in damage and 3.5 in utility. So we'll see about that. The main strengths of the champion is still the stagger on heavy attack, which was the same thing, where she inflicts 2 staggers on the heavy attacks. Mjolnir packs a punch, landing basic attacks on a shocked opponent. It's going to let you stun them, which again is kind of what she did before. She's just going to be able to do this somewhat better. While striking a stunned opponent, you will have guaranteed critical hits, but this time you're going to actually have increased critical damage, so damage should be better there. Right, so let's go over the abilities. The power of Mjolnir grants Thor 1800 energy resistance and causes enemy shock effects to suffer -100% potency. While fighting science champions, this is reduced to 20% potency. So obviously that effectively gives her almost a full-on additional immunity, which you know is always neat. It's always like an additional thing. Plus increased energy resistance is also, you know, useful at times. So I do think this is a neat aspect, a neat increase in her usability. I do think she had some sort of interaction with shock previously. Let me just find where she is very quickly on champion info, and we're going to compare some of her existing abilities as well. Where is the Lady Thor? Here we go. So, because I know she did have some energy resistance as is. She had 70% shock resistance, which obviously, you know, did matter, but it's still 100%. It's much better. And also the energy resistance kind of has remained the same, with additional weakness against science champions. Now, heavy attacks had 85% chance to stagger opponent for up to 8 seconds, and the stun chance was always 21%, which is going to be important to note. So moving on, while the opponent is shocked, Thor gains a 30% perfect block chance. That is very important, and a lot of people don't understand that. With 30% increased perfect block chance, her parry stans are going to last longer, and you will be able to land like 4 hits in the majority of the cases before your parry expires. Granted, if you have maxed out parry mastery. So with this already, you know, she's going to be easier to use in the sense that your stuns are bound to last longer, and also that perfect block chance will be a way how to bypass Limber completely. Kind of in the similar fashion how Domino does it with Massacre in Labyrinth of Legends. So if opponent is shocked, she will, you know, always have long enough stun to land attack on the opponent. Top of that, all attacks have 21% chance to inflict a 2.1 second stun debuff. Now, the fact that it's debuff, again, is quite important, and we're going to take a look at her previous time. It was the same thing, basically, as it is right now, but obviously, as we know, if you do have max Stupefy Mastery, I believe it's called, your stuns are going to be extended to somewhat longer duration, and the fact that they are debuffs just means that it interacts with that mastery still. Because it's often kind of like one dangerous trap where people fall in when they read stun durations. You need to understand that passive stuns do not get the increase from Stupefy Mastery, debuffs too. Okay, moving on. While the opponent is stunned, Thor's attacks have strike with guaranteed critical hits and gain 1000 critical damage rating. We're going to see how much damage this actually provides to her, but I hope that there is a fairly noticeable difference in damage pre and post buff in, you know, regular parry 3-hit combo situation. I will definitely be uploading a video where I compare her damage output pre and post buff, so stay tuned for that. And I will also try to find like a super, you know, kind of beneficial matchup, because Now she will have some of those. Now, Thor benefits from rank 3 of the Petrify Mastery. That is the mastery that reduces enemy regeneration rate and combat power gain if opponent is stunned. So, you don't need to have any points to basically have max benefit from that mastery. Or if you already have max Petrify, then you will gain additional increase in attack, which, you know, is going to equal by, what, 700 increase in attack? And if you take a look at her base stats on this champion, you need to wait to check out which rank and rarity all of this is based on. 5-star level 565. So increased by 700, that would be like about 30% Fury buff, basically. 30% Fury active, which again is somewhat meaningful, and it all could add up quite nicely with the addition of that critical damage. Right. Heavy attacks now inflict 2 staggered passives on the opponent lasting 17 seconds. Now we can see that this has been increased because previously it was only 8 seconds. So it's going to be much easier to maintain those staggers because you're going to have basically double the duration, and it's 100%. So basically they will always trigger, not like before when they could fail. Now moving on, 100% chance to inflict shock debuff with level 1. 8-second long shock. The damage of that shock is not overly important, the duration is, and that is virtually the same as it was before, if not, yeah, it's same, 8 seconds. And special 2 before was the same thing, just 8.5 seconds, versus now special 2 is going to be 100% chance to inflict shock debuff causing whatever damage over 12 seconds. This shock becomes passive while fighting cosmic champions, which again can be useful. And then we have this shock is paused for 7 seconds each time a buff on the opponent is nullified. Now, if this has a potential to stack, which Thor Jane Foster could virtually never do previously, if this level 2 shock has a potential to stack, then you will also significantly increase likely, I hope it would work out that way, that you increase the chance of you stunning them, perhaps, if it works out that way. I'm not entirely sure it would. But it would be interesting to see how this entire reaction works anyways. But needless to say, pausing a 12-second shock for 7 seconds is a very big deal. So it can make this shock last basically, you know, forever in appropriate matchups. And then we have special 3 with 100% chance to inflict a shock passive causing 6000 energy damage over 13 seconds. This shock is paused for half second each time the opponent is stunned. So again, you have another way of increasing the shock duration right here. And then I assume this is SIG ability, even though it's not listed as a SIG ability, but that's typically where they place the SIG ability. Each time Thor inflicts a personal shock effect on the opponent, she also has a 100% chance to nullify all power gain buffs on them. Additionally, while the opponent has at least one shock effect on them, they suffer 80% ability power rate, minus 80% ability power rate. So, you know, it's going to be a nice to have awakened ability that can be useful at, you know, specific matchups. I don't think it's going to be an absolute must-have because it's ability power rate. If she would reduce combat power rate, that would be massive because you would be able to go for some incredible, crazy shock loops. Other than that, synergy-wise, there's nothing special, really. She, you know, she's going to synergize with Valkyrie and God the God Butcher as well. But that's just, you know, slightly increased combat power rate, slightly increased perfect block chance, armor rating, and, you know, it's nothing special there in synergies, let's face it. And if we take a look at Thor Jane Foster in the list of all the synergies in the game, trying to find something useful, we don't really see much. We can see that Mystic Champions can deal 30% of their attack as direct damage to the opponent when nullifying buffs, which again, you know, is nothing special. Nothing special here. And Thor Jane Foster personal shock effects last 25% longer. This can be a decently good synergy. And then lastly, the one with Hercules is gain 40% shock potency, and well-timed blocks gain 30% perfect block chance while the opponent is shocked. Again, you know, this is neat, but it's not, you know, game-changing at all. And Venompool is just a jerk with his synergies and never gives anybody anything useful. So he doesn't really have any, like, super mega useful synergies individually to her. However, I do think that she can benefit quite nicely from Magneto House of X pre-fights, increasing her ability accuracy, thus increasing her stun chance on regular attacks, and that could, you know, truly be the difference in between, you know, semi-reliably keeping opponents in stun loop. That is about it. You know, I would be hard-pressed to say that this buff looks insane or anything like that, but At the same time, I do think that there can be kind of like similar situation, maybe in a sense, that with Spider-Man 2099, where his damage on paper and initially looks absolutely dreadful, but then when several things come together, like, you know, physical vulnerability, when you increase the amount of debuffs with, you know, as the more special attacks you spam, and you kind of, all of those things add up to increase your damage quite significantly. Kind of, for instance, like Nimrod increases, you know, his damage via the fact that Energize is super potent, via Sig ability increasing the duration of the shock debuffs and potency. I kind of see similar effects here, because she will have a buff in her critical damage, which in itself obviously is a fairly big deal. And then obviously she also has an increase in her attack if you have max Petrify Mastery. And then the fact that she can pose those shocks for quite a long time with specific champions could work very well. I am worried that she might be quite a slow starter, because you do really want to get to that level 2 in vast majority of situations, because there's nothing that pauses your level 1 shock. And then getting to that level 2 in order to kind of get rolling properly is typically not what you want to do with most of the champions that, you know, often immediately signals that the champion might be a fairly slow starter and is not going to be the most rapid kind of like quick questing champion. So we'll see how she works out. Again, from the offside, again, the fact that you can just parry, do 3 hit combos, all of whom are going to be guaranteed crits, with the increase in her damage and her base hits, might be good enough. I'm not going to write off this buff just yet. I'm going to keep an open mind and will look carefully. As I said before, I will record pre and post damage comparison. I will also this time try and find some matchup where she can pause those shocks for as long as possible to see how those interactions work. But yeah, that is Thor Jane Foster, basically in short, her updated abilities. Let me know what you guys think, drop a comment, and I will catch you guys soon. See ya. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the next